Hey, Marcy, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Great to see / meet everyone here.
Marcy, thank you for helping coordinate and organize everything. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you guys for being willing to serve in this way. It's a big deal.
Hi, Marcy. Nice to meet you.
Same
Don?
with you, Brett.
Brett, hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good.
Hey, guys.
Great. Hey, Lindsay.
Hi.
Lindsay.
Afternoon. How are you all doing?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
I'm with the Career Academy.
Great. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
It's 2:01. I think we're waiting for one more committee member, so maybe we'll just give another minute. Well, there's still one more committee member who has not joined us, but thank you all for being here. I am not the chair of this. I'm just the facilitator. As are James and Lindsay, who are members of 2 of the authorizing offices in Indiana. We'll all do our best to be resources to answer things factually with basic information to help the committee get off the ground. But I will do our best to not offer our opinions or anything remotely, wading into the committee's territory in any way. If somebody on the committee wants to call the meeting to order, I'm taking notes, by the way, just in case no one else is, but if there's someone else is, then we'll just combine our notes at the end of the day for some minutes.
So 2 things. Jamie Brady is running a little late. She'll be joining us in a minute. Just from a legal perspective, if I can just weigh in and say this is a little weird because we don't have a chair to actually call the meeting to order. If just one of you would like to say, one of the board members wants to call the meeting to order and then we start, she should join us in the next couple of minutes. And since the first order of business is for you all to introduce yourself and then to elect a chair, this won't be a problem going forward. So no, there's Jamie Garwood. Wrong Jamie.
Jamie Brady's jumping in too.
Okay, there
So
she
we're all
is.
set now.
Okay, so if anyone, it doesn't matter, on the board just wants to call the meeting to order, then we can move to introductions and then you guys can elect a chair and then we can move forward.
Hi, this is Lisa Edwards. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1:05 p.m. Central Standard, 2:05 Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so we would just go down the agenda and start with the introductions.
Indeed.
Okay. So I can start first. I am Lisa Edwards, Director of Trio Services at Ivy Tech. Yes, whoever did the agenda, when we get to that part, I'll cover that. But I'm also a board member of 2 charter boards in the city of Gary, Indiana. I've been in Gary all of my life. I have been at Ivy Tech for 10 years. Prior to that, I was a director of housing management at the local Gary Housing Authority. So nice to meet you all. Would someone like to go next?
Sure, I'll be glad to go next, Lisa. My name is Brett Boggs. I'm a retired superintendent. I was an educator in the, the Tippecanoe Valley School Corporation for 40 years and retired 3 years ago. Spent most of that time as an administrator, 10 years as a superintendent, and I'm on this committee serving to represent Grace College.
Great. I'll go next. I'm Don Cooper. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Charter Schools at Grand Valley State University. So in that capacity, I oversee 78 public charter schools in Michigan that educate about 34,000 students statewide. I've been working in the charter space for a very long time on the authorizing side, have had some experience in management and some experience in consulting with a national consulting organization. And I'm here as the appointee of Trine.
I'll go next. I'm Jamie Brady. I am currently the Regional Vice President and Superintendent of Schools for Excel Schools. Prior to that, I actually was with James at ICSB. Prior to that, I've got over 25 plus years in education in Indianapolis Public Schools and equally in charter schools, about 10 and 10. Started out as a teacher and climbed.
Is that all of us? So Brett has spoken, Jamie.
I apologize. Barbara, Dr. O'Block, are you able to get off, come off mute and introduce yourself? Barbara, you're still on mute. If you're speaking, we can't hear you.
And I am not on mute. I am on unmute. I was knocked off of this 3 times already, so I'm not.
You're back on mute, unfortunately.
Mute. Clear.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about the picture. Like I just said, I've been knocked off of Zoom like 3 times already. I don't know what's going on. So I guess you can at least hear me if you can't see me. I'm representing Calumet College of St. Joseph on this. I am a part-time adjunct at the college. I recently retired as superintendent of schools for the Diocese of Gary. And I also worked as associate superintendent of schools for the Archdiocese of Chicago. And I'm happy to be joining you in this venture.
Okay, great. So that seems like that is all of the committee members. I would just like to add, I am here as an appointee of Ball State University charter schools. So, so next up on the agenda is election of the chair. So is that volunteer basis? Is that how that goes?
Yes.
Marcy? Okay. So
Yes.
it would
There's
anyone like?
there's no official guidance in the statute. So
All right, great.
happy to take a volunteer.
Okay, so we are open for receiving any volunteers. Brett, Don, Barbara.
Hey, Lisa, you're doing a
You're
great
doing
job.
great,
You're
Lisa.
doing a great job right
That's
now.
why I did not want to start because I knew. I know someone has some extra time on their plate that they can. That's fine. I can do. Now, would I need to be present at the public comment portion because I will not be able to be there. So
No, you do not need to be present, though. Those will be recorded and shared with the full committee.
Okay.
And Lisa, if it's you, we will do our best to support you with logistics and
Okay.
any issues like that.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Lisa, for stepping up and doing that.
I hadn't finished. I was in the middle of, but okay, that's fine. For the sake of us to get some progress, I would definitely go ahead and do that. And so, do we need to have a motion, Marcy? Or
Yes, please.
Yep. I would move the election of Lisa Edwards as the chair of the committee.
I'll second that.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, so we'll
I
do a
can
roll
call the
call.
roll if you'd like.
Okay.
Brett,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and Lisa.
Yes.
Congratulations, Lisa.
Thank you. I can't believe this. So next item up on the agenda is discussion and adoption of committee procedures. So has everyone received what Marcy sent out as far as the our procedures? If you've had a chance to review those.
So I'm going to really quick run over these.
Okay.
I offer it just because
Thanks.
I'm an attorney and they're based primarily, we tried to keep them as stripped down as possible. They're based almost exclusively on the committee statute, our open door law requirements, and a little bit of nonprofit law thrown in there. This is obviously pretty unprecedented. It's very rare. I mean, it's not unusual for the legislature to establish committees or boards. It is quite rare, I guess, for them to establish one with so little guidance and with no staffing. Usually they're assigned to some other existing agency to provide staffing and things like that. So this sort of represents a group effort to try to put together some procedures for y'all without restricting what you deem to be, the important aspects of your role. So the statute itself literally just says, if the Department of Education determines that 2 or more schools are eligible under Indiana's unused building statute, which allows a charter school. It's a very long statute. I'm not going to go into detail. You can read it yourself if you want. It's actually in the procedures that if 2 schools are eligible for a building that has been put on the unused building list, that a authorizer committee will be convened. And the convention, I mean, it's sort of left up to us how to do that, other than the fact that each statewide authorizer appoints 1 representative. There are currently 5 statewide authorizers in Indianapolis, and each one of us has appointed a representative.
Oh, that's okay.
So that is how you are all here, and thank you very much for agreeing to serve. I think we did I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit, pat us all on the back. I think we did a great job with getting folks who are qualified in a variety of areas to make this decision. So the only two statutory requirements are, well, there's actually 3, but one is that at the first meeting, they elect a chair, which you've done. The second is that you adopt board procedures. Now, there's absolutely no guidance about what is supposed to be in those board procedures. The third thing I'll get to in a second, and it's the only requirement as part of this selection process. So, you can look through some of this. I'm not going to talk about appointment of members. This is a temporary appointment. Each committee, the committee is convened for the specific purpose of making this decision. So when this decision is made, essentially this committee dissolves until this happens again and we have to convene another committee. This is the first time this has ever happened, obviously. So this is all new to all of us. So there's some language in there about just making sure that we timely appoint appointees. And I want to start off by saying that these procedures, we hope, once you adopt them, will continue on to whoever serves again, if this ever happens again. So we tried to make them forward thinking. So at any rate, it just has some things in there about us having to appoint representatives very quickly because we have a 60-day total window. And also what happens if a representative, for some odd reason, cannot complete their duties during the course of the time. The main thing that I want to, I think, talk about is sort of Indiana's open door law and the various restrictions therein. One of the first things we did was reach out to our public access counselor, who is the state individual responsible for determining whether an entity is subject to our open door law, sunshine laws, you may call them in some states. And he determined that you were the moment the committee was established. And so since we all basically sent in our representative, appointed our representatives around the same time, I'm going to assume that is when the committee was established, which is why I sent that email the other day, because technically the open door and public records laws kicked in then. I sent you in the email some of the most common things that come up with open door law, the common sort of pitfalls. And that is, the main thing is that a majority of the board cannot meet or talk or converse via email, phone, or in person. I mean, I guess there's some technicalities you can meet in a social set. I mean, there are things, social settings or whatever, but in reality, it's just best if you don't do it to make sure that there's no appearance of impropriety, because you are technically a majority of the board. So 2 people can converse. And if you can converse to each board member individually, but you can't have 3 people on an email chain or 3 people on the phone or 3 people meeting each other to have any sort of conversation about the committee. That and the fact that from, probably Monday on, any emails that you receive from each other or from us are publicly discoverable for the most part. Sometimes there are exceptions for deliberative material, but because you don't really have staff, I'm not sure there is any deliberative material that would fall into that exception. So those are the things to watch out about. It's okay to respond to sort of logistical emails. I mean, obviously we're going to have to coordinate meetings and public hearings and things like that. But again, if you can avoid replying all, even accidentally, we've in the past, we've had issues with that as to whether that constitutes a meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just better to avoid it entirely. Marcy's going to run point. So please direct all of your questions through her. And if for whatever reason she can't provide you with an answer, she'll figure out what to do next. Again, so excuse me. So again, basic nonprofit law, majority of you constitutes quorum. That's 3. And the affirmative votes of the majority of the folks present are required to take action. That's just basic nonprofit law. So now we're sort of getting into the nitty gritty. Actually, one thing I'm going to skip over the next 2 paragraphs real quick to talk about the electronic participation policy. The reason that is in there is because because we are under an emergency, a health emergency, we are permitted to conduct public meetings entirely virtually. And fortunately for us, that extends through the end of June. And since we have to be done by the end of June, that means that we can hold all of our meetings virtually. Normally, you have to have an electronic participation policy in order to have anyone participate virtually. It probably isn't necessary, but I stuck it in there anyway, just in case. So we don't really need to pay any attention to that section of the procedures. It will apply again, maybe in the future. So I stuck it in there just so we could have it if 2 months down the road, when we don't have a health emergency, we're going to have a public meeting that's actually in person. So which brings us to the next 2 sections, which are really where you guys, sort of the rubber hits the road for you all. There is one requirement in the statute, and that is that you give a preference, or I think, I forget what the exact wording is. Is it priority? Sorry, is the word. You must give priority to a charter school located within 1 mile of the vacant or unused building. That is not applicable here. So that doesn't even factor in. That is the only guidance in the statute as to what your sort of method of selection is. So you all need to discuss and come up with how you all are going to make this selection. There is not a requirement in the statute for a public hearing, but universally all of us authorizers agreed that it should be a necessary component, even though it's not in the statute, because all of us as authorizers, the public hearing, which is the opportunity for the public in the school corporation where this building is located to make themselves heard, is a critical component and is required under our charter law. So we felt as if that should be a critical component of your process, whatever else you decide. You guys can decide that that isn't critical and remove it. Again, you have to approve these procedures. We put it in there because we thought it was just something you should consider. The sort of X's and various highlights in that particular section are in there because different authorizers have different public hearing procedures. Now, I'm not talking about meetings of the committee, which this is. I'm talking about a public hearing that is, again, primarily to capture the feelings of the public. So you all need to decide kind of how those things should be run, who should have the opportunity to speak and for how long, how long public comment should be limited to, whether or not public comment should be allowed at the actual committee meetings, which is like a meeting like this. Just to give you some examples, these procedures were primarily taken from the State Board of Education board meeting procedures, and they have a fairly extensive public comment process to allow public comments throughout the meeting. But because we are recommending a public hearing, you may or may not want to allow members of the public to speak at the actual committee hearing where you're making the decision. Again, totally up to you. You can say they will be permitted, they will not be permitted, they will be permitted at the discretion of the committee or the chair. Again, that stuff is up to you. Similarly, the only other method of selection requirement other than the one located within 1 mile is we have to have a decision by June 30th. 60 days from the date of the notice was April 30th. The decision has to be by June 30th. The rest of it is up to you. So I am going to stop talking at this point because I'm happy to answer any sort of legal questions, or if anything comes up, regarding open door or something like that procedural, feel free to reach out to me either now or via email individually, not reply all, and let you all discuss.
So we're establishing procedures for the final committee hearing. The public hearing portion is already been established as far as how much time we're establishing those rules as well.
Well, you're establishing whether or not to even have a public hearing. We put it in there because we believe as authorizers pretty much unanimously that it is a critical component of the process, and that the public should be permitted to weigh in and they should have their voices heard. This is a part of every authorizing process that we all have. We handle them somewhat differently, but there is always an opportunity for the public to comment. So not only are you deciding specifics about how that's going to be run, you're deciding whether to have one at all. So those last two paragraphs, the public hearing, public comment, and the method of selection, particularly that second paragraph, is all up to you guys to decide.
Lisa, may I ask a few questions?
Sure. Go ahead, Don.
So great, thanks. So first, I concur that that a public hearing is a wise idea in this instance, especially for those of us who may not be familiar with the operators, the facilities, and the proposals. But James, just for myself and the other members of the committee around the scope of our work, I want to make sure I'm clear that the decision that we're rendering is a facilities decision. It's not an authorizing decision. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, actually. Again, like I said, the statute is woefully thin, but what it does make clear is that your role and your only role is to select, and I'm quoting here, which charter school may proceed to purchase or lease the school building, or you can determine if the school should co-locate within the school building. Those are your sort of three options. And that's it. The department has determined eligibility, so we don't have to go down that road. Or sorry, you don't have to go down that road. And the schools, whether or not the schools are chartered is up to Trine University Education One, which is with whom they have filed their appropriate documentation. So you are not making an authorizing decision.
Okay.
You are making a decision about which entity gets the facility. or whether they share the facility.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I know the authorizing decisions are very rigorous and have a different standard of review. So it's helpful that the charge is clear that this is related to the facilities issue. Toward that end, in Marcy, I don't know if this is something, or any of the authorizers on the committee, is there some basic information about the facility itself that could be available for the committee? I mean, just square footage, age, things like that, when it was last in use. That just might be some informative for us as we're deliberating on this issue.
Don, I can tell you that that information is being gathered, and hopefully, I thought we would have it by this meeting, but apparently we don't. But once we get it, we'll make it available to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Don. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I just wanted to ask, when in the process do the two companies then make a presentation to us about their proposals?
Is that where the public hearing portion will come in, Mr. Bentley?
Again, that is up. It's totally up to you.
Okay.
Different authorizers do different things with their public hearings.
Okay. So in essence, we could adopt this policy, and this portion that talks about at the beginning of the public hearing, each eligible school shall have no more than a certain amount of minutes to make a presentation. We could adopt that and just propose and vote on the time limits. If we are all in agreement that we should, one, have a public hearing, we do adopt this language that is here and just simply vote on how long we would like for each school to be able to make a presentation, and then how long we will allow for public comments individually. So if we say 3 minutes for each person, or whatever, 15 minutes for each school, that's what we're doing today.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys need to finalize all of this stuff today.
Okay.
Unless we want to schedule another meeting to talk about this, which again is up to you. You all can schedule as many meetings as you want to go through this process. So if you want to just have a discussion today and then have us schedule another meeting where you finalize the process, we can do that as well. The only thing I would say is we are down to 19 days left. So we don't have a whole lot of time left to get this done. So.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think it's something that can be done definitely now. And then we have the public hearing portion already scheduled. Am I correct, for next week? I think I just saw it in the email today.
I did a poll just because our time is so limited. I did a poll among each of you committee members to see what your availability would be, but it is up to the committee to sort of establish that and publicly today. So I have shared what I believe are available dates and times for based on your schedules. But you can definitely feel free to make that final or deliberate further on that.
Okay, got you. So basically you just did the poll ahead of time, so we do have a definitive date and time that will work for the majority. Okay, great.
Unless you want to change it for any reason.
And if I can add, it's not necessary for you to attend the public hearing. We will be recording it. So, and also I guess Zoom has a transcribe feature. I don't know how good it is, but the recording will be made available to you, as will, I guess, the Zoom transcription, if you are not able to attend it.
Did I read somewhere that public hearing would be held at the school itself?
We envisioned that all committee meetings be happening virtually, including the public hearing.
Okay.
I believe that you're able to make that decision too. James, is that correct?
Well, so once again, we're trying to future-proof this, and in other in any other month other than this emergency hearing month, we would probably be holding the public hearing in South Bend, where the building is located. But so we had to build in sort of like what's happening now, which is that we're having it all virtually, but also wanted to future-proof it when we can't do virtual meetings anymore. And the intent then would be to try to hold it in the location where the building is. So some of this stuff is just not applicable, but it could be applicable in the future. So we just don't want to have to revise these board meeting procedures every time this happens. So
Right.
we're trying to account for every instance.
Okay. So will we also be, would we also receive information as far as being able to make a good decision? Will we receive information as far as the school's location? What charters are, well, we'll know what charters are vying for the building, but like the school location or any history on the school, like anything like that for us to help make a decision, or are we just whoever makes a
I
good?
think, Lisa, whatever you all determine you want to use as your criteria, we can do our best to gather the information for you or just tell you where to easily read it for yourself.
Okay.
I'm seeing a nod from James.
Okay.
So I think that that's the correct answer.
Okay. So would it be best for us to go ahead and have discussion and an adoption of the procedures if we do that first, and then we could talk about what information we would need to make a good educated decision, either from the schools or from you all? Does that seem?
James, do you believe that the criteria, the selection criteria should become part of the procedures?
So
Or does anybody have an opinion on that?
I will say that you have to approve, like, so those last two things, the public hearing, public comment method of selection, you have to approve their existence and then the specifics. So with the public hearing, public comment section, we're going to need answers to fill in those blanks because that will dictate how the public hearing is held. As far as the method of selection, and I'll let Lindsay or Jamie speak to this. The reason that it is left sort of vague, like it is there, is that, again, future-proofing this, different committees may have different views on what's important. And because there's nothing in statute, we wanted to give each committee the ability to come up with its own selection process, kind of like its selection criteria. So personally, I do not believe it should be part of the board procedures, but others may disagree. Ultimately, is your decision whether they are made part of the board procedures, because theoretically the next committee could just amend the board procedures and amend them out. So you could put them in the procedures directly and then deal with it that way. It just does. Again, it is all completely up to you guys.
James, I think, and Lisa, if this pleases the committee, I think that makes sense to first adopt the procedures, resolve the public comment issues. So that way we've got the foundation, and because this is all so situational, that after we adopt this, then I think we should have a discussion around what the selection criteria are, and I think that's would be very fair and helpful for the two applicant groups, and very equitable for them to see exactly the types of things that we're looking for in making this decision. So to advance the conversation toward that end, I'd recommend that we do the public hearing, and that we give each group, let's just say 20 minutes to make their presentation to us, and perhaps limit public comment to 3 minutes in length, as you had previously suggested. And it looks like in here that we'd also need to establish an email address for people to send in public comment as well. And perhaps that can be done via a Gmail or some other form. I don't know, Marcy, if that's something you can help with or not.
In fact, I've already created it and a Google form, so that it's just a link that the DOE is already, I think, in the process of posting.
Perfect.
their site. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Don. And so also with that, the general public comment part about permitting public comment at is that the final committee meeting, that committee hearing? Is that what that statement is under the public hearing, public comment portion of this?
No, I think, and this is just my thought, we should allow for public comment at the hearing itself and use that as the opportunity to gather all public input. And then when we come together again as a committee after that, that's limited to just our discussion on things.
Okay, so the statement that says general public comment will not be permitted at committee meetings, that is what you would propose?
Yes, that's what I'd propose.
Okay.
So I guess for the 3 blanks, I'd propose 20 minutes,
Uh-huh.
3 minutes, and will not.
Okay.
So I just want to interject here. I think 20 minutes is very, very long. I was leaning more towards about 10.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we're just making a decision based upon the facility.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'd split it with you at 15 for sure. But you know, again, just speaking for myself, coming in from not in the area, not having a familiarity with either group, and you know, the facility is a high stakes decision. It's not an authorizing decision, but it is a pretty threshold decision as to whether a school moves forward. I'm personally comfortable giving the schools a little more time to make that presentation to us, but again, that's just my thought on it.
Okay.
This is Jamie from Ball State. I just have a clarifying question.
Mhm.
When you say 3 minutes, I assume this means 3 minutes per speaker, not 3 minutes total for public comment.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, Jamie,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. 3 minutes.
Yeah,
per
okay.
speaker.
So I just think we need to make sure we're clear in that policy that, you know, we're talking about either you write it as per person or a total time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the way it's written looks like the entire public comment will be limited to
Yeah.
this amount of time. Oh, yes. Okay, so.
I
thank you.
already amended it to clarify that it's for each individual.
Gotcha.
Although I would love public hearings that only lasted 3 minutes.
So Lisa, if it's okay with you, I'll change my recommendation from 20 minutes to 15 minutes for the presentation.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to
Just real
To,
quickly,
yes,
before we do the motion, we're talking about 2 separate hearings, correct? We have the public comment, but we also have a committee hearing. So we'll be able to hear this presentation twice. Is that accurate?
well, they had said, Don was proposing the general public comment part at our committee meeting will not be allowed. So they will have one opportunity at the public hearing. Is that correct, Don?
Yep, and I just want to, my thought was the public hearing is the opportunity for both groups to present. And then our next meeting is deliberation. It sounded like from Marcy and James that the public hearing would be recorded. So if we were unable to be there in person or via Zoom, we'd be able to watch the presentation. So it would just be one presentation at the public hearing from each group. That's how I was thinking of it and how I was reading the proposed procedures.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're saying that just so I can make the changes that you're requesting, the applicants will not be able to present at the actual committee hearing. They'll be presenting at the public hearing.
I guess what was, James, maybe I'm confused about how it was originally drafted.
So there's the public hearing. So I use the words public hearing and committee hearing. This is a committee hearing.
Yep.
A public hearing is something that we hold to allow members of the public to weigh in on chartering decisions, right? So you can have, and again, you decide how long the actual applicants get to speak and when, and you could have them speak both before the public hearing and at the committee hearing, or at one or the other, or neither. I mean, it's up to you in terms of where they do their presentation to you. So that's I mean, there was no intent in trying to say which way is better. I just think it's clear, we just need to be clear for the sake of the applicants, or sorry, the schools, that they know, is their presentation going to be next week at the public hearing? Or is it going to be at the, maybe the week after at the committee hearing where you guys actually make your deliberation and decision?
I would recommend it occur next week at the public hearing.
Yes, I agree.
Mhm. Thank you for the clarification, James.
Yes.
Did we agree, did we agree how many minutes we are allowing for the 3-minute comments? Are we going 15 minutes again, half an hour? How many 3-minute comments are we allowing?
I was just asking for clarity as to whether or not they were presenting at the committee and the public, because I felt that the time frame should shift or change if they were presenting at both. If we say one or the other, then I'm fine with 15 minutes.
Again, just I think all authorizers don't put a time limit on public hearings generally. And please tell me if I'm wrong, Jamie or Lindsay. We just, if there are 75 people that sign up, 75 people get to make a comment. So it sometimes they last 15 minutes, sometimes they last hours and hours and hours. And they're also able at any time to submit comments through this Google form as well, even if they spoke during the committee hearing. And then you'll get all of that access to all of that information. So you can limit the public hearing time if you would like, but generally we don't. Most Indiana authorizers do not limit the public hearing time. Just to answer that question.
But we are limiting it to 3 minutes per presenter, correct? Or 3 minutes per speaker. Okay. At what point, James, do we have the opportunity to ask these two folks, two companies, questions?
I'm sorry. Again, I'm going to say it's up to you. Normally, it would be when they do their presentation.
Okay.
But, and again, other authorizers may have different feelings on this. The problem with doing that at a public hearing is that the folks that show up at a public hearing show up specifically to make comments. And if they have to wait an hour and a half to make a comment, you're going to lose most of them.
James, after the public hearing, if this committee decided we wanted to invite both groups back and ask them questions for our final meeting, would we be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have them come to both meetings and give presentations. I mean, you guys can do whatever you want. So there's absolutely no restriction. I mean, you can have them give a presentation at the public hearing. You can have them come back and give another presentation and be there for questions at the committee hearing. It's whatever you guys feel is necessary for you to be able to make an informed decision.
Don, are you asking once we adopt and say they will not be speaking, but then we did have other questions, could we?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is if we get all the presentations, both presentations in the public hearing for next week and all the public comment, we're going to learn some things and think about some things. It might be good for our meeting the following week to invite both groups back in case we have any questions for them. So less of a presentation at our next committee meeting and more of being present for questions if we have them. I just wanted to see if that was
I like that idea, Don.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
I defer to you guys on it, but I like that idea too. So
Yeah, I do like that because I mean, after their presentations, I'm sure we will probably have questions, and that will be time to get that. And then it will give us time to look at what they say, do our own little research, and then put things together, and then maybe have a final set of questions before we make a final decision. So we would add that language to the procedure.
Yeah, so do you want me to add after general public comment will not be permitted at committee meetings, something that said to the effect of, God, I forget how I refer to them, the schools. Eligible schools. The committee may request or permit eligible schools to, I mean, how do you want to phrase it?
The committee may request that applicants or applicant groups, I don't know the right term, attend committee meetings for the purpose of responding to questions from committee members.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of spitballing it. I'm not.
Yeah, I can, yeah, okay. Yeah.
That would be at what you referred to as a deliberation meeting, right, Marcy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so would now be the time to ask Don for a motion for those numbers.
Before you do that, let me read what I have.
Okay.
And just to make sure that we're all clear. So at the beginning of the public hearing, each eligible school shall have no more than 15 minutes to make a presentation to the public. Public comment for each individual will be limited to 3 minutes in length. And then I guess this is a new paragraph. I don't know. General public comment will not be permitted at committee meetings. However, the committee may request that eligible schools attend the committee meeting for the purpose of answering questions, any questions, well, and I'll wordsmith that, to answer questions from committee members. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I would.
I don't have this in front of me, but do you need to mention the online public comment form as a way that comment will be collected?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I can do that. The public. Oh, well, it does say, in addition, an email address shall be made available for members of the public. But we can just say, rather than saying an email address, just say, in addition, some electronic method shall be made available.
Electronic submission.
Yeah.
Shall be made available for members of the public who are unable to participate in the public hearing to submit comments.
Hey, James, I think we might want to stay away from are unable to. People can do whichever they want, right?
Yeah.
They can attend, but also if they prefer to write their comments, they're
for
welcome to.
members of the public to submit comments. I'll just remove the who are unable to participate.
James, could you read the whole sentence back?
Yes. Okay. At least one public hearing shall be held, the primary purpose of which is to gather community input about the decision. In addition, a method, email, or form, and again, I don't know how to say that, an electronic method.
James, we just refer usually to online public comment form.
Because we don't use forms, we use email.
James, could you just say electronic submission shall be made available?
Yes.
So that's either,
a method of electronic submission shall be made available for members of the public to submit comments. At the beginning of the public hearing, each eligible school shall have no more than 15 minutes to make a presentation to the public. Public comment for each individual is limited to 3 minutes in length. However, general public comment will not be permitted at committee meetings. However, the committee may request that eligible schools attend the committee meeting in order to answer questions for committee members. That's that whole section.
Okay.
Lisa and colleagues, I'm good with it, and I'd be happy to move the procedures as amended.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there?
And I can share my screen if you guys want to look at
it. Does anyone want to see it in writing?
I don't think so.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with the word. I was following along as you were reading.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Can we get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jamie Brady.
Want me to take the roll?
Yes, please.
Okay. Brett?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And Barbara?
Yes.
Congratulations, you have procedures.
All right, awesome. So next item is scheduling. So I am assuming is that scheduling for the information that you talked about before. Oh, go ahead, James. I'm sorry.
Lisa,
You still have to talk about what you want to do about selection criteria.
Okay,
That's the one.
the next one, next
Yeah,
paragraph.
well, it's sort of part of the committee procedures, sort of not, sort of part of. So
Okay.
I think, and I forget who made the point, that you want to establish those, if you are going to establish them as soon as possible, so that the applicants have the opportunity to know what they're going to be,
Yeah.
what you guys are going to be
Definitely.
looking at. So
and so if you need materials or information, we can gather that for you as quickly as possible.
yes, exactly. So it would include any materials you would like, keeping in mind that you don't have, there's no staff support. So we're sort of tag teaming all of this. And then, you know, if you want the actual criteria that you're going to use to make the decision, you don't have to. I mean, again, it's completely up to you what you say or don't say.
Okay, so since this is new for me, I don't know about others, but what would a selection criteria incorporate? So will we be looking at maybe the size of the charter? The number of students that each charter is going to be serving? Like, could we use that as one criteria? Things like that?
If you're asking, can you absolutely can.
Yeah.
Use whatever you
Oh,
think
okay.
makes sense.
That's
Yeah, I think,
If you want to.
yes.
Yeah, I think that would be important to know,
Yeah.
especially if, I mean, they're both, slated for a low number of, students, then they possibly could co-locate.
Yeah.
So I agree, and also think that I'd probably more broadly say it's student population to be served. So, I think it might inform our decision if the student population that they're planning is close to the school or if they're planning on busing people in, right? One might just have a better neighborhood impact than the other. So
Okay.
size of student population and student population to be served,
Okay.
I think is a good criteria. And Marcy, both applicants currently operate schools, right?
They do.
Okay.
Okay.
So
that was one of the questions I had. So what history or what experience each charter has, either with previously established charters or like, are you new? Are you a new and up and coming charter, or are you have you served the community for some time? So like sort of like a history on each particular school charter. Don, you were saying the number of students that they're approved to serve as well as the demographics of the
demographics or student population more broadly.
And are you looking more towards the grade levels?
Actually, grade level configuration is another interesting question. Age or grade levels.
I'm going to want to know about their governance, how they're going to govern that school. Funding is a huge issue.
Okay.
Successes, how successful have they been in their other ventures? Past success is a pretty good indicator of future success. Have they had any failed charters? Those kinds of things I think are important to know.
Okay.
So this is Jamie from Ball State. I just want to kind of offer as some my thoughts on this. I think I'd be careful with, think about, you're talking a lot about information you all need. And I think there's lots of information you need that you can look at to make this decision. But criteria, I think, can mean something different. That, so for example, if you say that grade range is a criteria, are you saying that, you're more likely to approve this for an elementary school versus a high school as a decision-making criteria? Like, I think there's a difference between a decision-making criteria and information that you all want to collect in order to make an informed decision. Because that's my thoughts on it, just food for thought.
Okay.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
concern would be that if we get too specific on the criteria, we could paint ourselves into a corner that we don't want to get painted into.
Mhm.
Yeah, Brett, I totally agree with you on that. And also, like a lot of the things, we want to be careful not to wade into what the authorizing decision is
Right.
either.
Right.
That it's a facilities decision. But one thing, whether it's criteria or just information, the resources that the applicant groups have available, I think is something we should consider. And again, this is hard without knowing much about the building, as to whether it needs a lot of renovations or whether it's move-in ready.
Yeah.
So I don't know, not knowing the applicants, not knowing the building, who would be best positioned to deploy it quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah, as Jamie stated, some of the items are for informational purposes, but they're also to make an informed decision of, as far as our selection. Because, I mean, if you're going to serve 100 students as opposed to 300, it's a huge building, or it's a small building, like Jamie said, that will help us make a decision as far as could the two schools cohabitate.
I don't know, Lisa, if we can do that today or not. I kind of feel like after the presentations that are made by the two folks that are interested in buying this facility or getting this facility, after we've heard from them and even from the public,
Mhm.
I think we might have a little better idea what the criteria of this, what we're going to use to determine who gets it.
So can we do that? Does that need to be done before we do the public hearing? That needs to be done prior to.
I'm thinking maybe after we've had the public hearing and we've heard from both of these companies and we've heard from some people there in the community that are interested. I think then at that point, we might be able to put something together to base our decision on. But I think it might be hard to do that until then.
I
Would
think,
be for me.
I think what you all need to do today, if you do anything, is just to the extent that they are going to prepare information or be able to answer questions,
Mhm.
they need to know what questions you're going to be asking and what
Yeah.
information you're interested in. So,
Mhm.
maybe it's not you're going to put together a scoring rubric as to how you're
Right.
going to judge all of this stuff. It's more of we want this information. And listen to this, and I'm transcribing this. I think you probably need to be as specific as possible. So when you say history or experience, like that's pretty broad. Successes, failures, that's pretty broad. How do you measure that? Are you looking for academic data? Are you looking at state grades? As you know, things have been a little messed up the last couple of years. So, we don't even really have academic data right now, or have had it for a while. So, all schools are in hold harmless, meaning that their grades have sort of rolled over, I think, for 2 years. So I think you need to be careful to be pretty specific as you can about the things that you mean when you say funding. Does that mean you want a budget? You want an audit? Those kinds of things. Because we can provide you with those things, but we need to know exactly what it is that you're looking for.
Okay.
Well, each of the applicants for the school is currently authorized, right? So each authorizer would have some form of an annual performance report for each applicant, the schools that they currently authorize. So that
They're
seems like
currently operating. Technically, each of these schools that would be locating in the building are not actually authorized yet.
Nope, understood. But there is something with the portfolios of the schools that the operators have that would indicate track record, fiscal viability, progress toward educational goals, whether they've demonstrated a history of maintaining good financial stewardship and can pay their bills on time. So I think one natural place to start with this would be to take a look at the most recent performance report for each school operated by each applicant group, to assess essentially how well they've done in other instances.
Okay. So yeah, so and then going back to what Mr. Bentley has said, I mean, even for the past couple of years, a lot of schools are not even being held um, liable for the reporting of the academic success. So
There should be a variety of types of information and data within every authorizer report, though, and it will probably, I'm guessing, explain clearly what data they did and did not have access to. I assume I'm seeing some nods from Lindsay and James. So I think that even though they may come from different authorizers, I think that is objective enough that it might be very helpful to you, in my opinion.
okay, you say you believe it would be?
I believe it would be.
Okay. Okay. So that is something that we could request from them as well.
I think too, just for what it's worth, those are actually public documents. So, and they're posted on both authorizers' websites. So we would have an annual review for Career Academy Network schools and a different authorizer who's not a statewide authorizer, so they're not on this call. Have one for Paramount's network of schools. But like I said, they're public documents and are posted on both of our websites. So that would be something that we could easily get to you guys.
And Lindsay, who charters the Paramount network of schools right now?
So the historical authorizer for Paramount is OEI. It's the mayor's office in Indianapolis, and they're not statewide, so they're not a part of this, or this conversation. But we also work with Paramount on their upcoming virtual school.
Okay. And is the report that the mayor's office produces what I'll call similar enough to what Trine produces, where it's similar information that we could gauge, you know, not necessarily apples to apples, but some sort of fruit we're seeing. We can make a good comparative judgment on the performance of the historical performance based off of those.
Yes, Don, I believe the answer to that question is yes. I think you're going to find very comparable data, financial and academic performance data from both of our offices.
Great, thank you. I think those would be wonderful places to start them.
Okay. So where would we get information about the actual facility? Like, how would we know if this school is going to need renovations? Is it move-in ready? Are these schools, you know, able to take it right off, or what their future plans are? Like, would those be questions we would be able to get answers to?
James, you said you were gathering information about the building itself.
I just texted. Okay. So I had Chad Ranney, who's the general counsel for the Department of Education, who's the one who kicked this whole process off by sending out the notification, has been in communication with South Bend Community Schools, which is the obviously the location of the building. And he had asked them for this information, and he just emailed me right now, basically saying he has not yet received any information specifically about the building. But I think it's something that we can email to you once we get it. And I put in the chat a link to the mayor's office performance reports. Lindsay, I was about to try to find yours, but you probably could find them faster than me for the Success Academy reports.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm happy to put the link in there if that would be helpful, or if you guys would rather get them in an email from Marcy later, whatever's best.
The problem is there's about 25 of them for Paramount. I didn't really want to email them.
I can
to our website
with the links in email as well.
Marcy, I think it's probably easiest to link to both the reports posted on our websites as opposed to the actual reports, but I'll do whatever you guys want.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send the links. If committee members need something more specific or help beyond that, they can definitely let me know.
So for me, so looking at like some of the criteria for me, I would look at like the size, as we already talked about, the size of the facility, the size of the school's population and things like that. Is this facility appropriate size for this particular group and their plans to grow and things like that? To have a cafeteria, a gym, things like that already, or is that something that have to be brought up, you know, done down the line? Um, are you looking at this school's mission and the goals? Is that something, because if it's a STEM school, does this facility have a space that can be converted to labs and things like that? So that's where I'm trying to hone in on what would I be looking at, because it's all the way, it's like this big, and we kind of need to bring it like right here. Um,
I think we need to, I agree with all of that, Lisa. I also think we need to really look at the community and the families and the students and the history of the individuals in that area. Like, is Paramount, where are they based? And who has more traction in the community and who's going to be able to obtain their enrollment and their marketing strategies and actually get the enrollment and the students in, because just because you say you're going to have 500 kids doesn't mean that's how many kids you're going to get. So I think that we'll get a lot out of the public comment and the hearings and, who has more support and backing behind them. I think that's going to be very important as to just the sustainability of even being able to remain in the facility.
yeah, yeah. I mean, how do we know this school doesn't need asbestos removal? Would this school be able to handle that, or
to afford it? Yeah.
Mhm.
And if they don't have the enrollment, which is driving, their funds for all of those operational items, then that's going to be a huge concern.
Yeah, they should be able to tell us what their plan is to be able to serve the population that they plan to serve. And I wouldn't mind hearing, what's your plan for 5 years from now? What's your plan for 10 years from now? What do you see happening with this facility in the future? What plans do you want to make? One company may want to expand the building and double its size. The other one may not. Those are things we need to know.
Okay. So I think our list gets longer and longer the more we talk, and so that's why I think is really good, Don, that you brought up that we want them there for the Q&A, so that if it is something that is not mentioned. So right now, that's the extent of the list of things we want answered from them so far, right?
Lisa, I think that the type of information you're asking for, like community support, enrollment, your kind of general background about your school and your goals, I think those are things that you're likely to hear in the presentations from each school, and they're both here on the call today, so they'll be able to walk away with that information.
Great.
I hope I'm not stepping too far out, but I'm pretty sure that would be the type of information they would want to share with you proactively.
Well, I think you're right, Marcy. And, I know we put a time limit of 15 minutes. I don't care if it's 45 minutes. I just want to get the information that we need as a committee to make the right decision. If it takes another 30 minutes, I don't care.
Yeah, and then you have the opportunity, of course, like you've established, to follow up with them with specific questions that may still be lingering at the I've just been calling it the deliberation hearing.
And Marcy, is a kind of a process question. I know we're still waiting on information on the building. Do we know if the two applicant groups have received some information on the building, like number of classrooms, layouts, things like that?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I do. They have.
Okay.
Statutorily, we're given an opportunity to schedule a walkthrough of the building in order of who put their notice of interest in first. So, Larry and his team were able to walk through, and then Tommy and his team were able to walk through. I don't know if the committee wants to hear from them, but those folks are on this call and obviously can. Okay. Also, really quickly, I did put Career and Success Academy's their annual review results in the chat if you'd like to use that link.
Thank you. That's great. So it would be reasonable in the public comment here, or the public hearing, for the applicants to be able to kind of show us a little bit, or at least describe how they envision their use for the building.
Yeah, and if you guys don't get the information that you need from South Bend, let us know, because we did get, we've got floor plans, we did walkthroughs with their facilities people, we've got, capital improvements and lots of information about the actual physical condition of the buildings. So if you don't get that back from South Bend, let us know and we can share with you everything that we've received.
Great,
Alex,
thank you.
if you don't mind, maybe you could just forward that on to me in the interest of time and getting information to committee members sooner than later. That might be helpful.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
So do we have a rolling list as we were throwing things out there? Has anyone kept a list of the criteria that has been mentioned by the committee members?
So what I have written down is building information,
Okay.
size of the proposed school, including grade span, capacity, demographics, whether they plan to provide transportation was mentioned, performance reports for the schools currently operated by the organizations. I think, Brett, you mentioned governance, but I'm not sure what you.
Well, is there a local board that will oversee that specific school? Is it how does that work?
Okay, so that's just something that they need to provide you in terms of info. Okay, and then
can I interrupt real quick, James,
yeah.
to that perhaps? I assume that their proposals for their schools are available. Lindsay, is that accurate? That we might be able to link them to, oh, okay, they have not turned in their proposal yet. Okay, sorry about that. I thought perhaps they would be able to get that kind of information from a document that was already created.
And then funding, again, I just linked, some charter operators have the audits actually on the charter website, some do not. So I linked you to the general SBOA, that's the state agency that handles audits, and you can find every audit going back to the dawn of time for these charter schools will be located on that website up through 1920. And then if there's other funding information you want from them, you need to probably specify what you're looking for.
Sure, James, thank you for that. On specific funding information, I would be interested in proposed capital improvements, if any, and proposed funding sources for them. So whether it's going to be self-funded from current reserves or philanthropic, or they are going to IFF for a loan or something like that, just so we can assess the viability of whether it's viable. And again, that's if any, this building might be in move-in shape. I don't know. So.
That kind of goes along with the last thing that Brett said too, the short range and long range goals.
Yeah.
3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know if I can have that on your list, James.
Yep. I just put like short and long-term goals.
Okay.
I think we talked a little bit about demographics, but I would be interested in knowing really who are they planning to serve, ages, how far away. I mean, if a kid lives on, 20 miles from this school, can he come if he wants to, or are there going to be some limitations there? So who do they plan to serve? What are the parameters?
Brett, as just a note, as charter schools, they would be required to serve anyone who wanted to come, even if it was from 100 miles or far more away. If they wanted to come from Evansville every day, they could by law.
But if they provided transportation,
transportation question is one that is, I think, already on the list.
do most charters provide transportation to their schools or not, Marcy?
It varies by community and by circumstance, but no, a lot of them do not because they don't receive any funding for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
some certainly do, but no.
Okay. So what it looks like we've done is made a list of pieces of information that we need to make a good decision. So not necessarily the criteria has not been established. So are we looking to not necessarily have a criteria, listen to all of the information that's presented, and then whoever we feel makes the best case overall? Is that how we're going to decide? This is for the committee members. And then, Mr. Bentley and Marcy, if you could.
Just from a legal standpoint, there are 0 requirements in the statute. So you guys aren't required to have criteria. You're
Okay.
not required to produce any sort of document. You're not required to give reasons for your decision. You're not required to do anything.
Okay.
The only thing that is required to be produced from open door law is a memorandum of the items discussed and the votes taken. So you can decide you don't need to publish the criteria at all. I mean, I'm just asking them for whatever information you want, and then you each make your own decision. And there's no requirement that you explain it, justify it, talk about it, or anything. Now you can decide to do those things, and you can agree to make that part of the criteria, but you're not required to.
James, is it slightly, I think we can do this based off what you said, but could we just, since we have a good list right now, could we ensure that each applicant group receives it with the notice that says, these are this is the information we will be looking at in our deliberations? I mean, I just want to ensure that it's fair and equitable. Everybody gets the same stuff. Everybody knows what we're paying attention to. And then, Lisa, to your point, we review the information, we weigh it out individually, and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that's what I think, John.
Can we add proximity to the list, the schools that are within close proximity and who we're competing against? For example, if Paramount wants a high school and there's a high school a mile away, but the other school is K-3 and there's not a K-3 building within 5 miles, I think that will have large impacts on recruiting and enrollment.
Okay.
I think it helps that both applicants are actually on the call, so presumably they're taking notes. But I also am going to write this down, and then I guess before the call ends, I should probably circulate it or show it to you, because I'm not sure I want to send it via email and then kick off a discussion about whether it's right or not, because that, again, open door stuff. So
is it possible to share your screen?
Yeah, and let me finish typing just the last few things.
I have one question while we're waiting, and it's obviously of some interest to both Paramount and ourselves. You've evidently circled on a date next week when the hearing is going to be. It would be great if we knew what that date was.
That's on the agenda next, Larry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hang on a second. Okay, this is sort of sloppy. Okay, so I don't even know if I can.
I made you the host, James. I hope that allows you to share your screen.
Okay. Oh yeah, it does. Hang on a second, I need to make sure that it's the right screen. Can you see that? I can't tell.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so please tell me if anything, you want me to change, tweak, add, subtract.
Can you make it a tad bigger?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Oops. Is that big enough?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
James, you might want to add audits since you offered that information.
Oh, yeah.
Size. Performance.
I have a question for the committee members. When you say short and long-term goals for the school, does that include their budget, proposed budget, short and long-term?
Jamie, the way I captured those notes was somebody from the committee said proposed capital improvements and proposed funding sources over a period of time.
Yeah, I missed the funding sources, but yes, that's what I heard as well. I don't know if that's different than short and long-term goals or the same.
So, Brett, I think the short and long-term goals, that was kind of your thinking on it.
Yeah.
And was that more of an academic goal or a financial goal?
Not necessarily
Okay.
either one specific. I guess just what's their vision for that school 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What do they want to see happen there? Or is it just going to be static the way it is?
Okay.
Right.
What I was thinking is perhaps the school will start as a K-3 building and they plan to add a grade every year.
Right.
Right. Something like that.
Mhm.
Yep. The other thing that I think about a little bit, and I don't know how much we need to know about it, but how do they plan to staff that building? You know, will there be a principal, an assistant principal, and a teacher for every 20 kids? Some of those kinds of things. I mean, I think we all know that staffing has a real impact on how successful schools can be. Are they going to require teachers to be certified, licensed teachers, that kind of thing?
I'd just different approach on it. I'd caution against getting into that level of detail because, I'm just mindful that our scope is a facilities decision and staffing, programmatic stuff, the more granular things, I believe will be vetted through the charter application process.
Okay. I mean, I'm willing to do that. My understanding is we want to select the company
Yeah.
that is most likely going to establish a successful school here.
Yep.
And if we don't need that information, that's fine. But again, I know that it has a lot to do with how successful a school is.
Is there anything else anyone would like to see added to the information gathering piece? We're all good with this list?
And so I guess I should note some of these things are items that information that we'll be able to share with you from third parties, but some of it are things I believe you'll be wanting to hear directly from schools. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay, hang on. So those are available publicly. That's available publicly. We can probably do that.
Figure that out.
Provide that to you. I think there's a website that we can use for that.
Mm-hmm. The building information.
And the building information. I think everything else is more going to come from their presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
I think it's helpful to view it like that, James. Does that make sense to all the committee members?
Yeah, absolutely.
It does, yes.
Okay. So we do have the information piece, and we have we decided, or does anyone have a viewpoint as far as establishing the criteria? We discussed gathering the information, brainstorming or whatever in our deliberation meeting, hearing, and asking any other questions that may not have gotten answered or we wanted more clarity on. And that's the route we're going to take. We don't, so we wouldn't say we don't have a criteria, right? We're just not going to specify one, right? Is that fine, Mr. Bell? Like in that procedure document, let me go back to that.
You don't need to say anything one way or the other.
Gotcha.
And I can actually, and I don't know how to move stuff around without screwing up the screen share. Is everyone okay with this? Can I
Yes.
stop sharing my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Because I want to go back to the procedures. I think I said the committee may at its discretion develop and adopt specific selection criteria. But maybe perhaps what we want to say is because there's nothing in there really about information requests. And in reality, what you're doing is requesting information, not criteria.
James, when we invite both of the groups to the public hearing to present at the public hearing, could we just, in the invitation say, this is the information we'd like you to ensure that you present? I mean, could it be that straightforward?
Of those things that we bullet pointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, they're both on the call right now, so
Yeah.
they're seeing in real time what you guys are hearing what you guys are talking about. But we will also provide that to both of them,
Great.
so that they know exactly, it's written down.
Yeah.
But we might want to change in the board meeting procedures that method of selection area to clarify that the committee may, or you could even say shall, determine which information is relevant to making the decision, and then may adopt specific selection criteria.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if it could be something so simple as saying the following will be considered by the committee. It's included but not limited to, and then just include the list. And in addition to what you just said, the committee may select different or additional criteria.
Okay.
You want the bullet pointed list in the board procedures? Is that what you're saying?
No, I would advise, and again, I don't know Lindsay, but I would advise keeping them out of the board procedures because that might change.
Yeah.
I would just think, and again, I don't know if we need to amend the board procedures, just making sure somewhere in writing, both groups get it and know that this is what we're going to be looking at in our deliberations to make the decision. And again, not to be the one who talks too much on this issue, but so Lisa, I don't know, Brett, others, I don't know if you have different thoughts on that.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, it seems like if we do put that list in there, it's like we're adopting it as a, in stone type thing. Yeah. And it's more or less just helping us make an educated decision. I think the statement that says that the committee may at its discretion develop and adopt specific selection criteria, we just leave that there. We're not planning to, from the conversations that we've been having, to adopt a criteria. And so we could just leave it as general as it is now.
There may be some other things come up too that we've not discussed today. And,
that's
I don't want somebody to come back and say, well, you didn't list this, so you can't consider that.
Right. That's what my mindset was going, Brett. I didn't want to hold us to that and that's it, because as we get more information, other questions may come up. And that's why I did like the part where we are going to have them at the deliberation hearing, so that once we gather everything and we do have any outstanding questions, we can get that clarified then before we make our final vote.
And you all can amend this
okay.
to, I mean, it's,
okay.
Like I said, you guys can have, you can have 3 meetings a week between now and June 30th if you like. We're here for you.
Okay. All right, so we'll move forward with what we have written as far as the procedures. And So since we've already made a motion and voted on the procedures, and that part was a portion of it, do we just move forward with the scheduling since this is final, or do we need to do a motion to? Well, we've already. You're on mute, Mr. Bentley.
Did you already vote on the procedures?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you probably need to have another vote on the procedures as amended.
Okay. So can I would entertain a motion to adopt the amendments to the procedures that we just made.
I'll make that motion, Lisa.
Okay,
Support.
the motion has been moved
I'll
Don
support.
seconded.
Yeah.
and Don has seconded. Marcy, can you do a roll call for us?
Sure thing. Brett,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
There you go. You have amended procedures.
Okay. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the scheduling. We have, Marcy has so graciously helped us with the June 16th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as the established time for, as the proposed time for public hearing. I will entertain a motion to accept that date and time as the public hearing time. That's June 16th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I motion to accept it.
Okay, the motion has been accepted or moved by Jamie Brady. Can I get a
Second.
seconded by Barbara? Is that Barbara?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so the motion has been moved and seconded to adopt June 16th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as a public hearing time. Can we get a roll call, Marcy?
Absolutely. Brett,
Yes.
Barbara,
Barbara.
I don't think we heard you.
Yes.
Thank you. Lisa,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
and Jamie.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So the motion has been moved. It has been approved for June 16th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have also established June 22nd, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the deliberation hearing for the committee. So I will entertain a motion to accept that date and time for our final deliberation hearing.
So moved.
It's been moved by Don. Can I get a second?
Second.
And seconded by Barbara.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call.
Brett,
Yes. Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
Excellent.
So the motion has been approved, and is there anything else that we need to discuss before we move forward? Okay, so we have the two dates established, and we have adopted our procedures. So we'll wait for the information that we have requested, and we'll move forward from there. Okay. Do I entertain a motion for adjournment? That's it. We're done.
All done, James, right? Or do we need to vote on adjournment?
I technically probably, but yeah, let's just do it to be safe.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
I
Brett.
second.
The motion has been moved in second.
So we need a roll call. That's the one annoying thing about the virtual meetings. Everything has to be a roll call vote.
Fine.
Brett,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
and Jamie.
Yes.
All right. Thank you much. The motion has passed. Thank you all. Nice meeting everyone, and we will be in touch. Thank you so much, Marcy and James, for your guidance and leadership.
And thanks to all the rest of the authorizers who, some of them couldn't join today, but everybody really pitched in
Yes,
on this.
Amy, Lindsay, thank you guys so much.
Betty did wonderful work. Thank you all, committee.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.